Hi everybody, welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. This is where we give you your top headlines, trending topics, and what we're working on for you right now ahead of our 6 p.m. What Matters Most, 7 p.m. Front Row, and 11 p.m. What's Next TV shows. Lots of things going on today. Probably at the top of everyone's mind are those impeachment inquiry hearings that are continuing. Today, in front of the House Judiciary Committee, law professors are testifying about whether President Donald Trump committed impeachable offenses. We'll dive into that a little bit. Then we're going to bring in 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod, and he'll talk to us about Cleveland Indians shortstop Francisco Lindor, who is most likely getting traded, and probably soon. He'll tell us all about that. Then we're going to look at some trending topics. You might be interested to know that Willie Nelson, who is pretty well known for doing this exact thing, is no longer smoking weed. We'll tell you why. We also have some very exciting news about Maroon 5 coming to Northeast Ohio. We will let you know when that is and when you can get those tickets. And then tell you an absolutely wild story about a woman in Canton who people want to canonize as a saint. All right, that's what we got going on for you today. We're going to dive right in talking about the impeachment inquiry hearings today. So today, law professors have been testifying before the House Judiciary Committee about whether, in their opinion, President Donald Trump committed impeachable offenses. And the day opened up with a lot of partisan fighting. We saw Democrats warning that Trump must be stopped from enlisting foreign interference in U.S. elections, and then Republicans arguing that there are no grounds for removing him from office. So this is all happening after a 300-page report came out by Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee. Now, the House Intelligence Committee is the committee that held the previous impeachment inquiry hearings before today, and that 300-page report found, quote, serious misconduct, end quote, on the part of Trump. So in case you forgot, this is all based on a phone call from July 25th where Trump is accused of pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter over Hunter and other related dealings in Ukraine. So today, 4 law professors are sitting on a panel before the House Judiciary Committee. Now, keep in mind it's the Judiciary Committee who will be responsible if it gets to that step for drafting the articles of impeachment. So 3 of the professors today were called by Democrats. They are recommending in favor of impeachment. 1 of those law professors was called by Republicans, and that is the only person who is recommending against impeachment. Harvard law professor Noah Feldman said the July 25th call qualified as a, quote, impeachable high crime and misdemeanor, end quote. Another Harvard law professor, Pamela S. Carland, said, quote, based on the evidentiary record, what has happened in the case before you is something that I do not think we have ever seen before. A president who has doubled down on violating his oath to faithfully execute the laws and to protect and defend the Constitution. End quote. She also said, quote, the very idea that a president might seek the aid of a foreign government in his re-election campaign would have horrified, end quote, who she referred to as the founding fathers. Michael Gerhardt, who is a professor of constitutional law at the University of North Carolina, which is where I graduated from law school, he predicted that if left unchecked, the president will, quote, likely continue his pattern of soliciting foreign interference on his behalf in the next election, end quote, which the next presidential election is coming up in 2020. Gerhardt also testified in President Bill Clinton's impeachment proceedings in 1998, and Gerhardt said today that Trump's actions are, quote, worse than the misconduct of any prior president, end quote. So the one person who is on this panel who is against impeachment at this time is Professor Jonathan Turley of George Washington University. He was called by the Republicans. And Turley made it a point to say that he is not a supporter of President Trump and actually voted against him in the 2016 election. But he argues that the Ukraine controversy is not enough to impeach Trump. Turley said, quote, if you impeach a president, if you make a high crime and misdemeanor out of going to the courts, it is an abuse of power. It's your abuse of power. You are doing precisely what you're criticizing the president for doing, end quote. And just a reminder here, President Trump has denied any wrongdoing throughout this case. So that's what happened roughly today as those impeachment inquiry hearings continue in front of the House Judiciary Committee. All right, in just a moment, we're going to be bringing up Ben Axelrod, our 3 News sports analyst. He'll be talking with us about the Cleveland Indians shortstop Francisco Lindor, who is most likely going to get traded. So Lindor at this time is a great player in Major League Baseball. Apparently his future here is a little bit uncertain based on comments that we've heard both from him and from the Indians. It seems like he's not sticking around, and he will probably be traded sooner rather than later, and Ben is going to break that down for us. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So break this down for me. How much time does Lindor have on his contract here in Cleveland?
Yeah, he has, based on the way the Major League Baseball contracts are structured, he began his career with the Indians. This is his first Major League deal. Based on the way that is all shaken out, he has 2 years of team control left, which means, technically he's not under contract right now. He goes into it's called arbitration, where they have to agree on a number for him to sign, but the Indians have his control. He's under team control for the next 2 years. But that's a key number in terms of how long you have a player under your control, because that means he can hit free agency after the 2021 season, go wherever he wants, sign with whoever he wants. The Indians have no control over that. So, to this point, everyone has said the right things, but actions speak louder than words, and there's been no indication that they are anywhere close on signing a long-term extension. So the logical question is, will they trade him, try to get something back for him, try to get a package of prospects from a team's minor league system back, so at least you don't lose him for nothing? And because we're at the point where there are 2 years remaining of team control, that's crucial, because once that number goes down to 1 year, that really diminishes a player's value in terms of what you're able to get back for him on the trade market.
So is it right to say then at this point, if we trade him, we can guarantee whoever we trade him to 2 years? Does that 2 years sort of transfer in a trade?
Whichever team gets him now would take over his contract, would have him for 2 years. Most importantly, maybe would have him for 2 postseason runs. So even if it was a team that was going to trade for him and didn't know if they could sign him to a long-term contract, at least they know they're getting him for the next 2 seasons, which is a really big deal in baseball.
And is there just no chance at all that we would keep him for these 2 years and then maybe even after that?
They could keep him, and he could walk for you'd get a draft pick out of it. But the writing is just so clear. The Indians, for what Francisco Lindor is, a 4-time All-Star who's 26 years old, one of the best young players in baseball. Baseball's not giving out as big of contracts as we've seen in the past, but there are certain players like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado who got them as recently as last year, Mike Trout. Francisco Lindor's in that class as far as players who would get one of those massive $300 million type of deals. The Indians have never given out a contract bigger than $60 million or $66 million.
That's a big difference.
They've offered Lindor, actually, after his first full year with the team after their run to the World Series in 2016, they reportedly offered him a $100 million contract, which is a big deal to offer that young of a player a $100 million contract. And he turned it down. He basically said, no, I'm going to bet on myself. I want to get to free agency when I'm still in the prime of my contract, or in the prime of my career, and see what kind of contract I can get there. And obviously that gamble has paid off and will pay off once he does hit free agency.
I mean, I bet on myself every day, but to the tune of more than $100 million.
Right.
We need to be at that level. How do we get to that level? All right, so when can we expect some kind of news or some kind of a decision on this? When do the Indians really need to act to capitalize the most?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's interesting about all this is the reason we're talking about this right now is baseball's winter meetings are next week. That's when all the teams get together. It will be in San Diego, and they have their discussions with not only free agents, but with each other, and that's what generates these sorts of trade rumors. The Indians don't have to trade him right now. That's the key in all this is they could wait up until the trade deadline at the end of July and still trade him to a team with half a season and then another full season left on his contract. That's what they did with Trevor Bauer last season. So that's kind of the way the Indians have operated. So at this point, I think it would take a trade offer that blows them away. That it's an organization's top 2 prospects as well as help at the major league level right away. I don't know if the Indians are going to get that right now. So I think the safe bet is we're going to be talking about this for a while, because I think it's probably going to drag out toward the trade deadline in July.
Well, he's beloved here, and I know we'll definitely miss him if he does leave. But, that's the business. That's the ball game, as they say. All right, thanks, Ben. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ben will, of course, be following that along with our sports team here at 3 News. So when there is more to know, it will be on WKYC.com. And that story is up on WKYC.com right now, so you can check that out as well. All right, to some other trending news. Willie Nelson is no longer smoking weed. Yes, I said it. And he's known for it. He has made it well known that it's a very enjoyed pastime of his, but the time has come for him to stop. And this is what he said. Willie said he has abused his lungs and breathing is tougher now, and he has to be careful with his health. Now, it was just in August that he actually canceled or ended up postponing. It was initially a cancellation, but that ended up postponing the tour that he's currently on right now. But that tour did continue, and that was related to health concerns. He's got dates through April on that tour right now, and he's got a date in August at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally in Sturgis, South Dakota. So he'll be performing. So whatever he's doing is obviously working for his health, and we wish him the best. And if you had to give up weed to do it, we're just glad to have you still performing, Willie Nelson. And he also didn't say anything about getting his weed in other ways. It's apparently the smoke that's bothering him, so there might be some workarounds for him. If there's a workaround that works for him, we think that Willie will probably find it. In some more musical news, Maroon 5 is coming to Northeast Ohio. They just made the announcement of their tour dates yesterday, and they will be coming with Meghan Trainor as their opening act. That's definitely going to be a good show. I will be looking into getting tickets to this. They will be at Blossom Music Center on June 18th, and those tickets go on sale December 13th. And we have that story up on WKYC.com with information on where you can look to check out those tickets. Now, this story is absolutely wild. This is a popular story on our website right now, and you will very quickly see why. People in Canton, my hometown, want a woman to be canonized as a saint. This woman named Rhoda Wise, she died in 1948 at the age of 60. But sort of the things that are related to her potentially being canonized or pushed to be canonized as a saint started in her early 50s. That was when she had a massive stomach tumor. We are talking a 39-pound stomach tumor, okay? So doctors were able to remove it at the time, but it left a gaping hole in her abdomen, and so they basically told her that she was preparing to die, so they sent her home back to Canton to get ready to die, but she didn't die. Instead, Rhoda said during that time, Jesus visited her, her stomach healed, and then she experienced what's called stigmata. So this is when you have wounds that are consistent with the wounds of Jesus when he was crucified, and there was bleeding from her forehead, feet, and hands. Okay, so after that, Rhoda became a nun, and people who spent time with her reported that they would heal injuries that they had had for a great deal of time. So these injuries included fertility issues, pain. We have more specifics on the types of issues that people were healing after spending time with her up on WKYC.com. Definitely check out that story. It's absolutely incredible. And we have photos on the website of Rhoda, and we also have photos of those stigmata wounds that were reported. So take a look at that. It's really, really fascinating. All right, thank you for joining us here on 3 News Now. We really appreciate you being a part of the stream and being a part of the conversation in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. If you have thoughts or comments to add about any of the stories we talked about today, you can always message me directly. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at _Stephanie Haney. Let me know if there's a story that's catching your eye, if something's trending that you think we should be talking about here on the live stream. And also, if you don't already, go to our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/user/WKYCTV. While you're there, subscribe to our channel. Go to any of our 3 News Now videos and click the little bell so you get a notification every single time we go live, and you can be a part of this conversation moving forward. All right, I appreciate you very much. I hope that you're all having a great week as we look towards the end of the week now. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll see you tomorrow.